So tonight I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and instead of working through a specific topic, I'm actually going to work through, well, not work through, but I'm going to talk through my own journey and some of the things that I've personally had to overcome. And the reason I'm going to do that is because over the last month, I would say month, maybe 6 to 8 weeks, I've spoken to a few of you, and like you're going through pretty rubbish time at the moment with one thing or another, like either suffering life-changing things happening, losing members or extended family members, all kinds of stuff going on. And like obviously you know that I can relate to you and I can help you, but like I want to show you that you're not on your own. So I'll be honest, I'm actually a little bit nervous about reading through this, and kind of sharing this with you guys, because I'm quite a private person. Like I share lots with people, but things that are important to me I generally keep quite close. So I'm going to work through this. If there's any questions, obviously when we get towards the end, that's fine. I've got about half an hour in total before I need to jump off because I've got a call scheduled. So let's just get to it. So, like, as you all know, I lost 100 pounds in weight, and I've kept it off for nearly 11 years now. It's been. But what I don't think a lot of you know is like some of the personal conflict, like both in my life and that I've had internally, that I've had to work through and that I continue to work through even now. So like I say, today I'm going to share that with you. Some of it cuts quite close to my heart, so please be kind with any kind of comments or criticism. It takes quite a lot for people to share this kind of stuff, so please treat it with a bit of respect, because it's not from a textbook, it is actually my life. So let me take you all the way back to when I was a kid. Like I grew up like a normal little boy for the first 4 years or so of my life. My family was fairly religious at that point, which was driven by my dad. And I attended Sunday school. We used to go to church, that kind of thing. And then my dad was killed very suddenly in a road traffic accident before I was 5 years old, on his way to work one night. And from that very moment, like my own life started to change. It was just me and my mum. Like I had older siblings, but they were quite a lot older than me, and they didn't live with us. My sister was off at university, and my brother was with his dad, because we were from different families originally. And like my mum pretty much devoted everything to me. So like I joke about it now, but I very much got a lot of special treatment, because I was the boy whose dad died. And like I say it with like tongue in cheek, but it's true. I received an awful lot of special treatment because of that reason. And my mum showed me love through food. So like by taking care of me, like we always had fresh homemade cakes in the house. I always remember the smell of when the cake batter was cooked and there was like a warm breeze coming out of the oven. She'd open the door and these like lightly browned fairy cakes, or there'd be a ginger loaf, would come out the oven, and that warm smell of cake would just like emanate through the entire house. And like another example would be every Sunday without fail she'd cook me a roast dinner, and some kind of pie for a dessert, or a crumble. I think in America and Canada you guys call it a cobbler. It's like crumbly biscuit bits on top of some cooked fruit, usually like apple or rhubarb or something like that, and that would be served with like ice cream and custard. So like I lived a fantastic life, was fed lots, and was very much loved and looked after. So like you can see that, like having always been fed like this from quite a young age, like I started to develop a bit of an emotional eating habit from an age as young as 5 years old. And like my brain started to subconsciously link being happy with eating nice food, and to show love you cook somebody food, or to feel loved you have somebody cook you food. And like as I moved into my teens, I witnessed my mum go through a few failed relationships and have her heart broken kind of over and over again. And it was just her and I, and we would just carry on like together. And it wasn't really until around my mid mid-teens, I suppose, that my mum met my current stepdad, who, like, in all honesty, he was fantastic to her. So you'd think all's well that ends well, really. Like, at this point, I've not really, other than the fact I lost my dad, it's all quite good. I've been cooked food on tap, fantastic. And now my mum's happy, so everyone can live happily ever after. But like, by this point, I was most definitely the fat kid at school. I was obviously at high school, and I was fairly fit. Like, I played a lot of sport. I played rugby multiple times a week, and I was always kind of outside playing with my friends, doing some kind of sport. But I was carrying a substantial amount of weight. Like, I had a fairly low self-esteem even at that kind of age. And like, we all know, like, kids and teenagers are fairly cruel, especially to each other. If I asked a girl out, it would be literally laughed up in the face. Why are you asking me out? No. And that kind of, obviously that hurt. It's humiliating at the best of times. But when you add to that the bullying that I was already receiving from other people at school because of my weight, it all kind of starts to add on top of each other. So as I finished school at 16, I went straight out to work, and I wanted to earn money, and I wanted to move away from home. I wanted to move away from my area and experience the world a little bit. So I moved halfway up the UK to one of the major cities in the country called Birmingham. Enjoyed life there, learned a lot. But as a young guy, you can imagine, late teens, early 20s, my diet sucked. Lots of takeaways, lots of convenience food, microwave food, fast food, and my weight continued to go up and up and up. And it wasn't until I hit around 22, 23 years old, when I found out I was going to become a dad, that things really needed to change, I suppose. And by this point, like, I'd spent a few years up in Birmingham, and I moved down to the south coast at the very bottom of the UK, and I've obviously lived there ever since. And like, anyway, like, I hit at my maximum weight. I hit somewhere around the 290 pound mark, which, if you're in the UK, is about 21 stone, which for somebody who's 5'9", 5'10", if I stand up really tall, is quite heavy. Like, I couldn't run up the stairs. I could barely bend over to put my shoes on without being physically out of breath. And by this point, emotionally, I truly despised myself. Like, I couldn't look in the mirror. I'd pretty much given up on my appearance and had just turned to eating. And like, food was one of the few things that kind of gave me that momentary comfort. Like, but it was a vicious circle. Like, and obviously you guys know this. Like, in that moment, you feel good or you feel happy. Then almost as soon as you finish that final mouthful, the regret kicks in. Like, the guilt, the sadness, the questions, the negative self-talk, the what am I doing? Like, you're a fat mess. Like, how are you going to be a good dad? Like, look at the mess you're in. And as time went on, and my first son was born, called Landon, I made the decision I really needed to change. And like, I started off just like everybody else, thinking, I know, I do exercise. Because if I do loads of exercise, I'll lose a load of weight and everything will be fine. It makes sense. So I remember I went out and I bought a DVD, and this DVD was a Taibo DVD, which is like, it's kind of like karate and kickboxing to dance music. And it was by this guy, this over enthusiastic guy called Billy Blanks. And I did it every single night. And sometimes I do it twice a day. And like, I started trying to eat better as well. And at that time, my definition of eating better was to restrict. It was literally to cut everything out and just eat protein. Very quickly, obviously, that failed. My body craved carbs. So I tried fasting. But I'm one of these people that I'm all in or I'm all out. So I was like, okay, well, what's the most extreme type of fasting I can do? I know, a 23-hour fast. I tried 23-hour fasting, and it was this thing called the warrior style diet. And literally 23-hour fast, 1 hour you were allowed to eat, and you could eat whatever you wanted in that 1 hour. And some people do very, very well with that style of thing. If they don't have an emotional eating problem, like, there's potential that it could work in the short term. Obviously, I already had issues with food as it was. So 23 hours of no eating, 1 hour of eating, like, it was a case of I actually gained weight doing that, because I had quite a large appetite. and I have this innate ability to be able to eat very, very quickly. And my relationship with food, obviously, like I said, wasn't the best. I was able to cram in 2, 3, maybe even 4,000 calories with not really much difficulty in that hour. And like, it became quite a negative experience quite quickly, because like I started thinking, like, what else could I eat? It almost became a challenge of what else can I fit into that 60 minutes? And sometimes you'd spill over that 60 minutes. And like, I eventually decided, oh, this isn't working, I give up on it. So then I went and tried something called the Dukan diet, which is similar to keto. And then that didn't really work. So when I got bored of it, so I moved to paleo. Didn't really like that either. Then I became a vegan. This was before plant-based was cool and was everywhere. So food was quite limited and it was horrific. And I literally went round and round and round, not really sticking to anything for longer than a few weeks, maybe a month at a time. Like, I lost a bit of weight, but it just kept kind of going up and down, the same 20 or 30 pounds over and over again. And by this point, like, I was really starting to get fed up. And I think a lot of you can probably relate to that feeling, which generally leads you to when we start working together. A lot of you are at that kind of point when you join this program. You're fed up. You tried it all. It's not worked. You're at the brink of already giving up anyway. And you go, do you know what? I'm going to give something one more try. And like, I said to myself, maybe I should just be happy with the constant like yo-yo of 20 or 30 pounds up and down. And I started telling myself things like, well, you know, like, you're a heavy set guy, like your dad's side of the family are all quite large people. It's more important to enjoy life than worry about the scales, etc., etc., those type of things. But for me, there was one thing that always drove me, and that was Landon at that point, my little boy. And he was just a baby. And like, I always thought that, like, he deserved a dad that could do anything with him. Like, and without a doubt, being a dad was my why. It was my driving force that, like, I'd waited for a really long time. For as long as I can remember, I'd always wanted to be a dad. And like, I wanted to give like my child everything that I suppose I missed out on. And it didn't really matter what obstacles I had to overcome. Like, I'd have a small pity party and then I'd pick myself back up and go, do you know what? You've got a reason to be doing this. Get on with it. And I'd overcome it to get to the goal. Like, no matter what, I would find a way. And this is why I say that, like, when you come up with your why, it has to be strong. Like, it has to be stronger than any possible reason that might derail you. Okay, like, because life, it was going to test you. Like, life is not fair and it is not easy in any way, shape, or form. Like, bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people, and it's just how the world is. Like, obviously good things happen to good people too, but like, we always find what we look for. And if we want to find injustice, we will. But like, if we want to find our own success and we want to find that salvation, that path to get where we want to be, like, we can. Like, we just have to ask better questions and we'll get the answers we're looking for. And I've covered this before, but like, if we ask things like, why am I fat? Well, the world, the universe, Google will give you an answer, and it's because you eat too much, or it's because you're lazy, or whatever it is. You'll get an answer. You're not going to like the answer, but you'll get an answer. But that's not going to help you. Like, it's a case of, if you ask a better question of, I don't know, like, why am I struggling to lose weight? We're going to get a better answer because it's a better question. Like, because you're not feeding your body what it needs, because you don't know how to lose weight effectively. You're going to find a more complex answer because you've asked a more complex question. So like, if you ask a better question, you're going to get a better answer. And like, anyway, back to what I was saying. So like, I made the decision to carry on, and like, this time I personally got the help of a coach, like an online coach, because I was too scared to actually go into a gym and kind of look somebody in the eye who had a six-pack and big muscles, because I thought they'd just laugh at me. I like my low self-confidence and low self-esteem. Like, there was no way I was going in a gym. Like, in reality, any coach with an ounce of integrity, like, would welcome anyone approaching them asking questions. But like, we know that if you have low self-confidence or you have low self-esteem, like, we portray our own feelings like of ourselves onto other people as if it's their opinion. So this is why, and I digress momentarily, but this is why when you have a couple, for example, and we've covered this on a few different occasions, but when you have a couple and one part of that couple, like a husband and wife or whatever, a girlfriend, boyfriend, decides, like one part of them decides to make a change and the other one chooses not to, like when one member of a couple starts to get into shape, the other person gets grumpy and they try to sabotage. Like, and it's not because they're being mean on purpose. Like, it's because they themselves have insecurities and they potentially have low self-esteem, or they're worried, like, or fear is starting to get in the way. Like, fear starts to take over, and well, what if they leave me? Like, what if I'm not enough anymore? Like, what if they want somebody else who's in shape and I'm not in shape and I can't get in shape? I don't have time to do that. Like, we mirror our own negative thoughts onto other people to help make ourselves feel better, which is why when you're speaking to some people and they try and pull you down and they say, what are you doing that for? That's a stupid idea. You'll never get where you want to be. Be sensible, be reasonable. Well, they're not really actually criticizing you. They're judging you by their own measuring stick. And it's a case of they don't believe they could do it. They don't believe that it would get them the results they want because they wouldn't be able to see it through. That's not a direct reflection on yourself. Like, anyway, so I got myself a coach, and like this guy, he helped me. Like, I learned quite a lot, and like started to lose a decent amount of weight, like using standard diet methods, like very restricted, quite like very bodybuilder driven, that type of thing. Like, all of this time I continued my own learning in the background. For those of you that know anything about me, you know that I enjoy like learning about this. This is a very much a passion for me and has been for a very, very, very long time. And these skills obviously are the things that over the years we've slowly like managed to bring down and really create this program. But anyway, like, it seemed like life was starting to go fairly well, but by this point I had a son and a daughter, and I was making good progress with what I was doing. Like, I was starting to get improved confidence, and like for that very moment life was good, and that's lovely. But then it was at this point, and I think most people would go through this, like life throws you a curveball and everything went sideways very, very quickly. And like, my mum's health had been deteriorating for several years, but she just had kind of always carried on plodding on. Like, however, over the next 24 months, literally my life got flipped on its head. I received a phone call to say that my mum had attempted to commit suicide. And like, I literally was in a state of shock when I heard that. And every single part of my life, it just stopped for a moment. And like, this woman had been my rock for my entire life, like literally my everything. And she was the strongest person I knew. And I just thought, this can't be right. Like, how could a person who, like, I felt could literally carry the entire world on their shoulders suddenly decide to try and tap out and give up? Like, and actually she'd been sectioned under the Mental Health Act for her own safety. And like, a range of feelings came over me. And I'll be honest, one of the first feelings that came over me was embarrassment, because like, my mum had just tried to kill herself, and obviously people are like, oh my God, is everything okay? People start asking questions. It's embarrassing. So like, I felt embarrassment. I obviously felt sadness. I felt confusion. I felt anger. But anyway, I drove the 4 hours back to where I was from, and immediately went to go see her to see what was going on. And like, I'll always remember this as clear as day. And I walked into the specialist hospital, and my stepdad was walking in front of me. He was showing me where to go. And like, I always remember like the funny lighting in a hospital. It's like, that's that like luminescent type light, isn't it? Because there's no windows really until you get onto the wards. And like the smell of the sterilization and like some horrible hospital food and like the odd bit of shouting and like, commotion kind of going on in there. And like, I walked into this communal area. I had green carpet, brown tables, and there were certain people sat at some of these tables. And my stepdad spotted my mum. She was sat on the first table nearest to the door. And he literally said to her, he said, I've got someone to see you. And he just took a step to one side. And like, I saw her sat at this table and she had some food in front of her, and she had a doctor sat next to her, what that looked like he was talking to her like she was a small child who wasn't eating her dinner. And like he was obviously trying to convince her to eat, and she looked at me, like she very slowly like jogged her head up and looked at me with these gigantic black eyes, and she literally looked like a lost little girl. Like she stood up without saying a single word, like shuffled over to me, and she literally held my hand. And at this point, I just kind of stood there, not really knowing like what I should be doing, what she was going to do. I just kind of stood there, just trying to hold myself together, because this woman who had been my rock all of a sudden very much needed a rock. And she just said to me 2 words. She just said, "Oh, Alan," and then literally led me to her room. And I sat in her room for hours, about 3 hours, and she said about 30 words to me over and over again for the entire duration. And she sat on that bed trying to tell me something, but just couldn't. And like being eaten up by like the fear inside of her, like the fear that I would judge her, the fear of failure, the fear of that I would turn around and say to her that her actions are unacceptable. All of these kind of things were going on inside of her. And like, I obviously found out later on that what she was trying to tell me, and it all related back to an event from when my dad was alive. This was over, at that point, that was over 20 years previous. And I was a small child, and like the fear had destroyed her health, and it had now completely destroyed her mind. And like, to me, this is a massive example of why it's so important to work through mental roadblocks, because you can take all the pills in the world, you can go to a doctor and be prescribed everything under the sun, but it doesn't fix the problem, it just masks it. Okay, so by working through these mental roadblocks, not only for your mental health, but because like in many cases, like whatever it is that's eating you up inside, it's not true. Like our mind creates things. Remember, fear, false evidence appearing real. Like our mind is designed to create this feeling of permanence, this feeling that things are going to last forever. They're not. Like, and it wasn't until after my mum passed away, like I said, that like I had to sort through everything and figure out like what was going on. And like I can tell you without a doubt, like it would not have changed my opinion of my mum. It hasn't changed my opinion of my mum. Like, but if she had dealt with this rather than push it deep down inside of her, like, and try and lock it in Pandora's box, this, like I said, this box of secrets, like, slowly killed her. Like, and if she'd have dealt with it, her life would have been truly different. Her health would have been truly different. Because, and the reason for that is there's lots of studies that show if you are stressed, if you have like internal emotional issues that you are not dealing with, this shows itself in multiple different ways. One way is by deteriorating health. Obviously, she would have also had different internal beliefs, which meant that she would have made different decisions, which meant that her life would have been very different. This is one of the many reasons why mindset plays such a fundamental part in my program, because like not only is mindset important to actually get the best weight loss results, but it's also critical for us as human beings, like to be in control of our thoughts and to understand how to work through things in a really tangible way. And like my mum's life, it ended the following May bank holiday, and she committed suicide. And she made sure that there was no way that it could be undone. And like that moment, it broke me into a million pieces. And I will forever remember that moment. Like that moment I found out, it's just something that I'll literally never forget. And at that moment, weight loss, it was no longer a priority. Exercise, no longer a priority. Like my biggest fear that I'd had since I was a 5-year-old little boy, and I'd lost my dad, and I knew that I only now had my mum. My biggest fear in life had just come true. I didn't care at all about losing weight or exercise. And like, this is where, when I say things like learning what season we're in, that plays such a fundamental role in our journey, because like, personally, I gained a bit of weight back because I just gave up with everything. However, like my goal for all of you guys, for any of my clients that ever come through my programs, is to understand how to be able to level off. Because like life gets heavy sometimes, like life gets super, super heavy, and things happen in life that are no fault of your own. Like, but you have to take care of other things. Like all of a sudden your priorities have to change. And it doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that you should quit. It literally just means that you have to press pause. And like you can press pause for as long as you need to. Like you learn that like by actually pressing pause, you can stay the same for a few weeks or a few months, or even maybe a year, maybe 2 years, who knows? Like that's actually a massive achievement when everything in life is falling apart around you and you've got other stuff to deal with. Just being able to press pause and saving all of the progress you've made, well, that's amazing, because then you don't come back to it 12 months later having regained that 20, 30, 40 or 100 pounds that you'd already lost. Like you just carry on from where you left off when you're ready to. And like, I'll be honest, this whole period of my life, it was pretty terrible. I also broke up with the mum of 2 of my children. Like I became borderline homeless. I sold everything that I owned. I had to close my first business. So pretty much I was rock bottom, and like, well, I thought I was rock bottom. That was until I got a phone call. And this phone call, I received it at a funny time of night, much like the call that I'd received the previous year. And except this time it was my brother. He was 35 years old. He was slightly overweight, but not majorly. Like he just enjoyed a takeaway and a beer. Like he wasn't, I wouldn't even consider him fat, to be honest. And he dropped down dead at a work event of a heart attack. Because when it rains, it pours. And like, it always happens when you just think life can't get any worse, it does. And it's at this point that a lot of people would just give up, and you'd be like, this is just cruel. Like, why is this world so cruel to me? And like, however, for me, like, I didn't give up. Like this, like as devastating as it was, it brought me back to life actually. And like, I'd not been a particularly good dad for that past 12 months. Like I was having a very big pity party, like feeling very sorry for myself for losing my mum. But in doing so, I'd actually robbed my children of their dad. Something that I'd always been looking forward to doing, like being a dad. And I was like woken up to the real reality that my brother's kids, like I had lost their dad forever. But I was still alive. Like I was lucky. I could go hug my kids anytime I wanted. Like my kids could come to me when they wanted to see me. Like life was far from ideal, but I could be dead, and I'm not. So, like I said earlier, like life is about questions that you ask, and if you want to see the bad and the negative, you will. If that's what you want to see, you're going to see that. Like, but if you want to see the good or you want to see the positive, like it's not always easy, but you can see the good and the positive in every single situation, even the worst of situations. Like there's always something that can come from it. Maybe not immediately, maybe down the line, but at some point you can take something positive from it. And like you can take some hope from a situation, like if you really, really look hard enough. And like, I've always thought to myself, ever since that moment, like every single day is a blessing. Like my brother was my ultimate role model. He was someone that I really, really looked up to. Like I always wanted to emulate his success, and like you always have to have people you inspire to be like the better versions of yourself, to push yourself to become more, and that kind of thing. And like I've pushed forward a very long way since that point in my life, and like obviously met my wife now, who had 2 beautiful girls when we got together. Honored to be able to call them my daughters, and they obviously call me dad. And then we obviously have our little man Deacon, who we have together, and that completed our family unit. But you see, like if I'd made different decisions in life and I'd decided that like I didn't want to see the good in the world, I didn't want to see that glimmer of hope, like I didn't want to find something to hold on to and a reason to move forward, I wouldn't be here right now in front of you guys. Whether you're watching this now live or you're watching it on a replay, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here to help you. I wouldn't be the dad that I am. I wouldn't have achieved my goals. I wouldn't have helped the thousands of people that we've actually managed to help so far. Like, my passion is helping people to overcome obstacles in life, like the obstacles that have held me back in the past. Like, and do I know everything? No, nowhere near, far from it. But I'm committed to and continually investing in myself to make sure that I always can deliver more to you guys, always deliver everything that you need. Like, invest in my own education to make sure of that. And like, for me, success is measured in helping as many people as I can. Like, I want people to be able to live life on their terms. I want them to overcome the roadblocks that hold them back, not just help them to lose weight, but to improve health, to improve their life, to help them wake up every morning feeling happy to have another day. Like, no one, and I literally mean no one, knows what tomorrow will bring. Like, maybe it'll be the best day of your life, maybe it'll be the worst day of your life, or maybe it'll just be another rainy Friday. But without doubt, every single day is loaded with opportunities to either move you forward in life or keep you remain stuck. Like, it's our choice individually to decide and to choose what decisions we're going to make. Like, things in life, they might not always be our fault, but if they affect us, they're our problem, and we've got to find a way to work through them. And like, we have to use everything that we have at our disposal to find a way across that bridge to get to where we want to get to. Like, and I don't tell you this story. I'm running out of time, to be honest, guys. I don't tell you this story for you to feel sorry for me. Like, I tell you this story so that you get a glimpse into my world. Like, we've all gone through hard times, and I'm sure many of you have gone through things a lot harder than I've ever had to go through. But without these lessons that I've gone through myself, like, there is no way that I'd be the coach that I am today. I'm committed to your success. I'm committed to changing or helping to change the fitness and health industry that runs on crazy workouts and stupid fad diets, like, by showing people that there is another way, a much simpler way, like, that gets you results, like, as well as also tackling those mental and emotional hurdles that you go through. So, like, if you're going through a difficult point at the moment, or at any point, don't suffer in silence. Like, let me know what you need and we'll get you unstuck. Like, make sure, like, some summary points, like, make sure you have your why. Your why has to be so strong, like, stronger than anything that might possibly derail you. Have multiple whys, have a super strong why, really think about your why. Make sure that you focus on the next step. Like, don't consume yourself with tomorrow or next week or next month. Focus on the next step. And if you need to, just focus on the next hour of the day. That's all you need to worry about. What are you doing next? When you're going for a walk, you don't worry about what you're going to do on the 900th step. You worry about on what you're going to do on the next step, so you don't fall over. Like, make sure that you acknowledge your fears and your insecurities, because, like, that allows us to work through them. You take the mask off of it. Like, acknowledge them. We can work through them, and then we can start to understand how to overcome them. I appreciate this has been quite long of me literally rambling at you. I hope you found some kind of insight from it, and it's been beneficial. And if nothing else, it's reaffirmed a few key points. There's obviously only the two of you on live today. If either of you have got any questions, obviously fire away. We've got a couple of minutes. I've got literally 4 minutes before the session closes down. So if you've got any questions, feel free to fire away. If not, if anyone watches on the replay and they have any questions about anything, or something I've said has resonated with you and you want to talk about something yourself with me, just reach out to me, like on Voxer, on Messenger, on an email, on a comment below the video. I don't really mind which, but I'm here for you guys. Like, I'm here to help you get to your goal. Like, I want to serve you in the best way possible, but I can only do that if you all talk to me. So hopefully that's been useful. I don't think there's any questions. If there is, unmute yourself. Nope. Okay. I wish you guys the best. let me know what you need from me, and I will see you all on Tuesday. Take care, guys. Bye bye.